Welcome to Prodigy Sportive Adaptations. P.S.A. podcast is an unconventional podcast that challenges the audience to think outside the box using real-life experiences, clever narratives, original quotes, and the creative use of satire in order to break the audience free from negative paradigms and push them towards their own personal growth. This is by no means a method to condemn or bash the audience, but instead encourage and showcase a different perspective that might not have been seen before. P.S.A. is designed to showcase to the listeners that the power of the mind is not a joke, and if a person can learn to control their mind and their thoughts, they will ultimately control their life. This podcast serves as a means of entertainment and educational purposes only, and not a replacement for therapy or any other type of professional help that the audience may desire. Alright, y'all, we back again. It's been a minute since you seen me by myself. Well, you know, obviously I haven't been having guests left and right. My features we didn't have so far. We didn't have Stu, we didn't have D Holt, you know, we didn't have my boy Lando, and you know, we moving down the charts of the tracks. You know, we did last week episode about, you know, distance, and you know, you need to stay away from some people, stay away from some places, some things, just because you just sometimes need to see things clearly. Now, sometimes you may need to stay away from them permanently, but you know, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of one of those things. So I still feel like this episode about closure is kind of like the sister brother episode, because it's like distance started it, and then closure is now what kind of comes afterwards. Because if you distance yourself from somebody, they may want it, or if you do the distance, or they do the distance to you, then you want closure. So let's go ahead and jump into today's title. I'm talking too much. It is titled, "You're Wasting Your Time Seeking Closure, and Here's Why." This is also track 7. Meme reads, "You got all the closure you needed when they stopped talking to you out of nowhere." All right. Now that one's kind of harsh, but it's the truth. Inspiration comes from my mother. Actually, she say that. That's a line she say. So shout out to her. I was watching a Young Thug Tiny Desk the other day. I don't know why, but it definitely gave me some inspiration. A few lines he said in there, I was kind of like, I can rock with that, and I think that'll be a good, you know, addition or whatever to this topic. And obviously, shout out to Yola. She is on Twitter, she's on Instagram, and she actually used one of her reels for one of my videos for the week, when she talked about closure and like, are you seeking closure because, she said, you seek closure because you want them to see you changed and accept you again, because when they closed the door on you, you felt like, and they rejected you. So now you feeling like you want them to, you reaching out to show them that really you changed, when closure is a scam. If they didn't tell you, it is. All right, so shout out to her. All right, today's story time is called "Let 'Em Go." Aaron was changing and growing in life. Him and his two best friends since childhood, Marvin and Corey, had always been friends since they were 4 or 5 years old. But things started to change. Aaron noticed that Marvin and Corey were moving different when it was time for high school. They were trying to be hood niggas, and Aaron wasn't here for it. He tried to tell them, like, this not who y'all are, like, y'all don't have to be like this, but they insisted they had to. He decided that this wasn't the best look for him, so he started to distance himself from both of them. Out of rage, Corey and Marvin went around telling everybody that Aaron was acting funny, and he was moving shiesty, he was being different. They reached out to him several times to see what the issue was, but Aaron never responded. All right, so the lessons from the story is, you know, in this case, you Aaron, and you stop talking to people out of nowhere. Now, do I agree with him not talking to them when they reached out? It depends, because sometimes we think that sometimes people just don't want to hear it. And even if you explain to them, they're not going to be receptive to it. So I think in this case, Aaron felt like, you know, this story, one of those stories where it's up in the air. So I feel like in this case, Aaron was kind of like, well, I know y'all. I know you niggas. Y'all not going to listen. So he kind of probably felt like, well, ain't no point in explaining it to you. I mean, of course, he probably could have explained, but if he kept telling them from the beginning, y'all do moving weird, I don't like how y'all moving, this not who y'all are, and they just blow you off, why you got to keep explaining it to them? Does it make sense? Let's keep going. Once someone shows you how they are, let them be. And that's on anything. And if somebody moves or start moving funny and you ain't liking it, you know, you don't have to do a full cutoff, but you definitely can do a distance just for a minute, just so that you can kind of see, you know. And a lot of times people notice you better when you stop talking to them. I don't know why it's like that. That's friendship wise. That's like, if you're talking to a girl wise, that's like, even family. People notice you more when you stop talking to them. I've never understood that. But it's very like, it's very weird. It's very, very weird. Ask yourself with closure. This is the last lesson. Do you want closure or do you want them back in your life? Do you really want to end it like, you know, I just want to end it with this final goodbye, whatever it is? Or do you just want them to be like, hey, look, you changed. Oh, I noticed. I'm going to be your friend again. Oh, we can start back talking again. Oh, we can end the whole divorce thing. I can just remarry you again or whatever, you know. I think that's what you want. Let's continue. Got my definitions as always. Went ahead and defined closure. Says a resolution or conclusion at the end of an artistic work, and then rejection, the spurning of a person's affection. So a lot of times, a lot of these people who can't deal with closure have a rejection issue, and they struggle with that spirit of rejection. So it's like you know, it may have started at childhood and in the home, or it started with some, you know, somebody they liked. You know, you just never know. It's a few different things, but let's move on. Y'all know it's time for my favorite segment, QT&A, questions that need addressing. So speaking of addressing, and I've said this before, yeah, I probably think it's lame, but I really want some dressing. I ain't had none in a long time. I think the last time I had some was Thanksgiving, I think. Or maybe when my mama came out here, but that was a long time ago, and I want some. So if you know how to make some, hit me up. Also, shout out to Boohoo. They sponsored this shirt. You see it? They sponsored this shirt, all right? You know, the two-tone, you know, like Y and Millie, mixed personalities going on here, you know. Over here, I'm rah-rah. Over here, I'm chill. So today, you're going to get a little bit of both. You may get more chill. We'll see. All right, first question that needs addressing. Why is it that we want to chase people that walk out on us? Honestly, you get used to people. You know, change is hard and it's different, especially when you didn't see it coming. So if somebody just started talking to you out of nowhere, or you know, you probably been plotting to walk out somebody's life. You know, you with a girl and you sick of her, and you like, if this girl slam this door one more time, I'm leaving. And so she just happened to slam the door just out of, you know, because she just may be heavy-handed. She may got them big hands, them, you know, them I can't say that, but she got some hands on her. She got some hands on her, and she might slam the door hard. You like, and then next time y'all talk, you say, you know what, I can't do this no more. And she looking like, what happened? But when you fed up with somebody, you know, that's kind of how it goes. So I say that we want closure because we used to people being there and maybe we love them and that kind of thing. Second question that needs addressing. How does it feel when you start talking to somebody out of nowhere? It feels great. Feels great. Especially when they've been toxic and you've been fighting to like, why am I, you know, if you ever been in a relationship with somebody or, you know, around people, even a job, and you just like, why am I here? You know what I'm saying? Even a brand deal, a business deal, you're like, why am I here? I'm sick of being here. This ain't doing nothing for me, you know. And it feels good because it's like the pain, or not necessarily pain, but you know, the pressure gone. You know, they say pressure make diamonds, so maybe, you know. Third question, how does it feel when someone stops talking to you out of nowhere? You know, I saw a meme the other day. It says, you know, I love when people stop talking to me out of nowhere. It says the trash took itself out. And you know, that reminds me of the time in my college when I graduated, in my prime petty days. And I remember taking a picture next to a trash can for my senior pictures and said, ran into some old friends. Yeah. I'm not going to say that, oh, the trash took itself out. Some people, if they do stop talking, you kind of like, dang, I'm happy. Some people like, dang, you know what happened? But I want you to know, if they stop talking to you out of nowhere, Unless they just have a streak of doing that, or it's other reasons they can fall into it. But 9 times out of 10, it was God's way of saying it was time for them to shake the scene, and you wasn't gonna cut them off, so I'm gonna make them cut you off. And the last one, what does this have to do with mental health? It has everything to do with mental health, because it's always about why people thinking. Why, it is your paradigm, your blueprint, your worldview. Why are you doing this like this? Why did this person handle it like this? Some people cut people off without warning because they don't have good communication skills. Some people don't. Some people just like, you know what, I'm tired of dealing with this, I'm going to cut it off. They just felt like, me explaining it ain't gonna work, or maybe they feel like they didn't need to keep explaining it, or maybe they never explained it at all, and then that's their problem, not yours. But if you're the one doing the cutting all the time, you need to look at what's going on. I'm at a point where, I said this last week and the week probably before, I'm really big on accountability. If you can't take accountability for nothing, it's kind of like you gotta flee. And you ain't gotta flee, I'm gonna do the fleeing. And I ain't no flee like F-E, oh wow. F-L-E-A. I'm flee like F-L-E-E. Like get away. Alright? Like that. So let's talk about it. The science of closure and what it means for a relationship and whether you need it by Ben Ritter. So he says during a positive relationship, our brains are flooded with positive chemicals such as dopamine, schronine, vasopressin, and oxytocin. In the initial stages of a relationship, dopamine makes you feel happiness and euphoria. The others are responsible for feelings of excitement and the adrenaline getting your heart pumping and making your palms sweaty. Cortisol is released in response to the stress of a new relationship, which is responsible for lowering your other levels, and the hormone responsible for the mood stabilization and impulse control. Hence why when you are in love, you may find yourself acting irrationally. So that's more so for people that's like in a romantic relationship, your girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, that kind of thing. And it happens. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody made you nervous? I know situations where people they cut off people that they like because they're too fearful of truly opening up and loving people. And that's like a vulnerability issue. And that could be a thing too. So it's like, I'd rather just cut you off and move on because I don't even want to engage. And that's a real thing too. More people suffer from it than you realize. It says, over the time, the rush of euphoria may lessen, but by then your brain has been flooded and it causes a sense of attachment and bond to your partner. Throughout all of this, your brain is rewiring itself, creating new connections and neural pathways associated with the partner. Hormonally and physiologically, you've essentially been brainwashed. So that's another word for a paradigm shift. So you've been brainwashed because now it's like you can't stop thinking about them. You low-key in love with them. All that kind of good stuff. Something to think about. But it is what it is. It says your brain then still craves the euphoric hormone dopamine, but your partner isn't around anymore to supply it. Your brain goes into a pleasure-seeking mode, social media or real-life stalking or other risky pleasure-seeking behaviors. But you can't find it. Even more cortisol is released. So this really unpacks the brain in situation. And it's funny because it says people go like and stalking and stuff. And some people make the comment like, I would never do that. And I think of the movie Acrimony. And remember when she was stalking him afterwards when he had broke up with her. And she had broke with him. I can't remember. I gotta go rewatch it. But remember when, and people was going back and forth saying who was at fault. But I just feel like it's in a situation like that. And there's many situations where people get stalked. And I think of the movie Obsessed. I think of, I want to say When a Stranger Calls, but I don't think that's that. But either way, the point that I'm making is, mentally you feel like you done got used to them. Your brain, as I said, done rewired itself. You had the paradigm shift. Now you in love with this person, or you don't want them to stop talking to you. You just been so attached to them that now you got attachment issues, and now they left and you don't know what to do with yourself. And that's why people be talking about when Sean Kingston was like in his very first song, he said they'll have you suicidal when they say it's over. Listen, there are hotlines for that. If that somebody got you feeling that way, please call somebody. Don't let that build up, because this suicide is at an all-time high. And listen, suicide is very real. So if that is you, please call that hotline, and don't let your friends make you feel bad for feeling that way. And if you gotta, and because you know sometimes friends can be like, you know, you want to kill yourself, like, you know, they'll say stuff like that, and they may not mean no harm, but it's still just kind of like, you know. But we're gonna move on. We did the suicide episode, season 2. Check that one out. All right. I think it's called Black Thoughts. All right. So now when people walk away from us, it can be hard. You know, it can make you feel like you ain't good enough. You know, I think that's where it starts playing, is like the low self-esteem thing. And this was like, you know, well, you start to blame yourself, like, what did I do wrong? Did I not do enough of this? Did I not say enough of that? You start to blame yourself, and it may be your fault sometimes. Because I'm not going to make it seem like they walked out just because they got bad communication and they're a bad person. It may have been your fault. Maybe you're not that good of a person. And I'm not going to say not good of a person. But what I'll say is maybe you did some stuff that they got sick of. And sometimes you need them people to walk out to show you the error of your ways. Because maybe you wouldn't have changed if they didn't stop talking to you. You ever look at it like that? You needed them to walk out on you because you was wilding out. You was bugging out. They tried to warn you. You ain't listen. I feel like that meme. Y'all remember the Instagram meme with that dude in the kitchen when he was like... Alright, so let's go to an article on Psychology Today, and there's an article called Why We Seek Closure. It says, suppose you go through a painful breakup, there are ways to frame what happened. You can view the entire relationship as a failure, as an instance which you saw but ignored warning signs and spent months or years trying to make the relationship work when you should have known that it wasn't meant to be. Or you can frame it as a learning experience that helps you get to know yourself and what you want and your partner better, so you can find happiness. Could we refrain from telling the story at all? Not frame things? Can we live without spinning narratives about the past? So I feel as though in that situation, and that goes to all situations, whether you got fired from a job, whether a brand deal let you go, whether a friend cut you off, whether your parents cut you off, it's not just relationally. Look at it as a learning experience, as to kind of like, you know, this needed to happen for me. This showed me that I wasn't where I needed to be, and also showed me that, you know, they didn't need to be around me. But be thankful for the lessons they taught, because everybody teaches a lesson in some way, shape, or form. And if you didn't see the warning signs early in the relationship, friendship, whatever, you know, and I don't know why I got the idea of somebody cut you off because they needed money all the time, and they cut you off because you stopped giving it to them. You stopped being an enabler. Okay, they cut you off. You learn a lesson. Stop letting people use you. Think about that. So that's why I think we need to frame our mindset that way, because you're going to have to go through heartbreaks, whether it be on all levels. And it's just how it is. If you don't, you ain't living. And that's for somebody that's running from that. You ain't living. All right. Then it says from the same website, it says positive scenarios in which people seek closure. It says terrible experiences such as a battle with cancer may be framed positively, for instance, as an opportunity to get closer to a loved one and appreciate things that matter in life. When this happens, people may surprisingly to outsiders say that they regret nothing and would change nothing about the past even if they could, when by contrast, pain appears utterly pointless. And when we cannot tell a story about it at all, we may not know how to reconcile ourselves to our circumstances. Nizet says, relatedly, the meaningless of suffering, not suffering itself, was the curse that lay over mankind. All right. So, in that case, I think it's good where it says it talks about somebody with cancer and dealing with a loved one. And what's to say you and that family member wasn't fighting, and then they got the cancer? Not saying God gave cancer for y'all to get close. Not saying that. I'm just saying it's kind of taking the beauty and the negative in a dark situation. And y'all did get closer. Y'all had never talked that much, and maybe y'all had been mad at each other and y'all got over it. And then it's kind of like a happy closure. because it's like, you know, if this wouldn't have happened, we would have never healed. You know, you look at the whole lockdown situation. You know how many people, a lot of people died, but you know how many people maybe reconciled with people because they thought they was gonna die, or how many people reached out to people to check on them, make sure they was good, they hadn't talked to in years, and they started their relationship back. You know, so in a sense, you might have thought the relationship was over, but then they reached out, you know, and they fixed some things. So sometimes that's good too, you know. And then it says the deep human need of a narrative is particularly evident in the yearning for closure. Suppose you lose a loved one and you never find out what happened to him or her. Maybe the person did not return from a hike in the mountains. Oh wow. And the body was never found. You may have a difficult time moving on. If the body were found, things would be different. But why? Your loved one has been taken from you in both cases. So in this case, it's saying you may still have hope if the person is alive or the body ain't been found, because it's like, you know, you could say you didn't get the closure, but then it's like if they found it, you got the closure because you know they did, you know, they're not here anymore. Now, with that being said, if the body isn't gone, if the body is still missing, it is a possibility they could be still alive. You know, you may be hoping it, but like the quote says, you know, which I kind of agree with, kind of don't, but it says, you know, the body is missing. So it's kind of like but it says you still got closure because you don't know where it's at. But it makes me think of a situation that happened in St. Louis. And if you're from St. Louis, you know, it was this boy named, I think his name was Sean Hornbeck. And this was like when I was a little kid, like 5 or 6, maybe 7. Anyway, boy went missing. He was missing for years. He ended up getting found at the house of a pizza spot, Emo's Pizza. Shout out to Emo's Pizza St. Louis. Y'all need to sponsor me next. And he was found at the house of a manager at Emo's. And he had been living with that man. He was kidnapped by the man and had been living with him for like 5 or 6 years. So what if the family would have gave up looking for him? You know what I'm saying? What if they would have gave up looking for him and just like, oh, he dead, we can't find him? You know? They refused this. Now in that situation, I feel like it's good to see closure. It's good to see closure in situations like that. If somebody walk out your life, that's one thing. But if somebody is missing, if somebody is, you know, have gone crazy and you don't want to see them die, they may have been strung out, you know, something like that. Maybe, you know, keep fighting for them. That's different. In situations that you keep fighting for it. And even if it's a relationship with a parent or a family member, I feel like you keep fighting for that. You don't just be like, it is what it is. I do believe in closure for a season. Maybe close the door for a while, but don't leave it permanently closed in situations like that. So I think that's how we differentiate with that. Now you know what you're thinking. For those who may be dealing with closure right now, may be struggling, and I think I got pretty good with dealing with closure. When people stop talking to me, I just be like, cool. It'd be a time where I'd be like, what's going on? What's this? Not to be like, die. You got it. But from another reliable source, it says How to Move On Without Closure by Lika Minton. It says the first one, it's 8 reasons. It said don't sound weepy or needy. It said agrees you may be restless, your mind may be racing, you probably can't eat or sleep as you go days and nights trying to seek closure. So firstly, the object of your affection has left. But it says try and assume that you won't create drama. It says accept that all answers and accept that everything provided won't always get back. And just sometimes you have to pull the plug on a relationship. So I like that where it says that you're not going to always have the answers. Because you're not. You're not going to always have the answers. And then the second one says stop procrastinating and keep yourself busy. I agree with that to an extent. I don't believe you should be sitting in the house eating ice cream morning all the time, but I do feel as though when stuff first happens, you need to allow yourself to feel through it, because you keep yourself too busy, you just trying to ignore it, and then that's not helpful either. I can speak from experience. The third one, it says create new memories in an old place. I think that's different. Maybe change up the way your house look if y'all live together. Maybe, you know, places y'all used to go to, you know, go there with new people. You know, maybe if it's an old friend, an old job or something, well, if it's a job, forget that place. You heard that from me. Forget that place. But if it's, you know, a relationship or something of some kind, you know, you can kind of do it like that. The fourth one says, get your dose of self-love. So I think that people don't love themselves when you constantly trying to, and it may be an extreme, but to an extent, I'll say, that you don't all the way love yourself if you're trying to seek closure all the time. Like, you got to let people just let stuff ride. You know, front, back, and side to side. You know the song. The fifth one, it says, don't be too harsh on yourself. I said that earlier. Don't be too harsh on yourself because it's not always your fault. And sometimes it is just kind of like it is what it is. You can't really be too harsh on yourself because then you're going to just kind of try to find fault in yourself. And sometimes it was a blessing in disguise when people start talking to you. I'm telling you, it was a blessing. It says the sixth one, hearing a sorry. I think this is the best one. Hearing a sorry won't change nothing. It says learning how to move on without an apology, either from them or from your side. Expecting an apology when there is lack of closure is essential to assuage your ego hurt. It says that it does not change the reality that you've been left behind. It does not change the reality that you've been left behind. Don't expect anyone to apologize. Focus on yourself, says Dr. Nair. Just don't expect it. You have to learn to forgive without an apology, because some people are not going to apologize. They not. I know a lot of people's parents don't apologize. Mine do, but I know a lot of people who don't. And it's just like, they like, it is what it is. And you have to accept them for that and move on. That don't mean they have to be in the same capacity of your life. But, you know. It says 7, learn to break the patterns of thought. It says one way you have to take control of the situation is by not letting others validate how you feel about yourself. It says do not look at yourself from your exes, old friends, old jobs, eyes in the process of seeking closure. Sitting around mulling what happened and what could have happened is pointless. Now, it is hard not to do that, but you can't do that because you're wasting your time trying to figure out what did I do wrong, when maybe they was the wrong. The wrong walked out. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, you know, you might be at one spot and somebody may hype you up and somebody may tear you down. So that's why you have to validate yourself and not rely on approval from social media or from people, because if you're relying on approval from that, then you're going to hurt yourself, because you'll never be happy. You'll never be full of joy. You'll never be Ashanti happy or for real happy if you seeking validation from other people. And I saw a tweet that they said, I hate when people receive backlash on Twitter and start trying to explain themselves. No, I said what I said. I'm not changing. Could it have maybe the delivery been a little better? Maybe so. But this is what I said. This is how it's gonna be. Beloveds, put that in your pipe and smoke it. The last one, it says, learn how to write your own recovery story. I think this is an interesting one. It says, one of the ways to move on without closure is to accept your flaws and your wounds. Life isn't perfect, and sometimes you do end up getting the raw end of the deal. But just because the person doesn't love you doesn't mean you don't deserve love. So in my head, I started hearing Mary J. Blige, I Can Love You Better. You know, when she do her little dance. I started hearing that song in my head. And I just feel like it's okay. You have to learn to write. I would suggest maybe writing down all the things that you love about yourself. And as always, y'all, get you a therapist if you need to. You know, I mean, it's covered in a lot of stuff, you know, especially I was listening to something and it was talking about how it said that people was going to take 10 years to spiritually, emotionally, mentally, financially, and in some cases physically recover from this pandemic. All right, 10 years. So you mean to tell me people ain't going to be back to a semi-normal by 2030? Them robot dinosaurs going to be on Earth by then. And we're going to, I don't know. But either way, you need to figure out what makes you happy, what brings you joy, and that is rooted and grounded in, you know, your purpose and your calling and what you called to do. Because see, happy is temporary. We want joy. And I'm going to do an episode over joy soon. You don't want just to be happy, because happy fades. People say, I want to be happy, I want to be happy. Well, I don't want to be happy. I don't want a happy meal. I want the joy meal. Take me to McDonald's and give me the Joy meal. That's what I want. How about that? I want the Joy one. All right, the Joy one's bigger, and the Joy one probably better. When people walk away from you, let them. What the song say? Then leave. Now I ain't saying the first part, but then leave. Peace out. Let them, because there's no point. No point of holding on to these people. They don't see your worth. They'll be back. But the trick is when they come back, do you open the door? Because the door may need to stay closed. So that's something to think about too. So wrap your noggins around that. Now, y'all, we got to go ahead and move on to my tips and scenarios for my college students. So with my college people, first of all, you need to expect people just going to stop talking to you out of nowhere. And, you know, you won't want the closure. As the meme says, you got the closure when they stop talking to you. Yeah, this could have been your best friend. Man, this could have been your ace boon. This could have been somebody in the same organization as you, fraternity, sorority as you, and you thinking like, I don't understand why so-and-so ain't talking to me. But sometimes people do stop talking to you for personal reasons. And I had a situation a few weeks ago where a friend of mine, we've been close forever, and she had stopped talking to me or responding to me for months. And then finally she hit me back up, and she was like, oh, you know, I was going through it, and I wasn't talking to nobody. So sometimes people stop talking to you because they may be going through it, and then that's when you give them their space. So the main issue is, or not issue, but main thing is just give people their space. And if they talk about it, if they mad at you about something, they tell you. But pay attention to people to make a habit of that. Like they always start talking to you out of nowhere, and they come back and they do it again. Then you need to leave them alone. You know what I'm saying? And like last week we talking about distance, so maybe that's them. But you know, it's gonna happen. Pay attention to people who stop talking to you out of nowhere if like you win something, or you like are successful at something, or you get a job or something. And you know, I ain't gonna say that on here. But yeah, just pay attention to people, how they start acting when certain things like that happen. Especially in college, because college you see a lot of stuff. But you know, maybe you made the organization that they want to be in and they didn't make it, and they stopped talking to you. They hate. And we need to pay attention to stuff like that too. Alright, my question or challenge for the week, okay? It says, have you ever dealt with anyone who just stopped talking to you out of nowhere? Have you ever just stopped talking to anybody out of nowhere? I challenge you to express how you feel the next time you get the desire to cut somebody off. Now, a lot of times we cut people off, or people want closure after sex. In reality, everyone is not going to wait till marriage to have sex. A lot of us haven't, and a lot of us not going to. A lot of us are not going to practice abstinence or celibacy. That's just how the cookie crumbles. It'd be some saved people getting it in. Granted, they end up getting married to the person, but still, you know, that's how they had them babies beforehand. Can't fool me. You got 6 months pregnant at the wedding. But the point that I'm making is, sometimes we want closure after that, or we seek closure after that. And, you know, it could be many reasons as to why. So as we know, the functioning and the formation of this album is, you know, we transition into one thing. So, because y'all love Let's Talk About Sex Part 1, I've decided to bring that back. This time with 3 of my homeboys. Alright? And it's broken into 2 parts. It's called Let's Talk About Sex Again, Part 1 and Part 2. Both of them will have visuals at a private villa. And we hash it out. Alright, we talk about things going from surgeries to, you know, sneaky links to, you know, cheating. We talked about it all. Alright, and I love the fact that all of them are all totally different. So tune in for that next week. Alright, this episode or track was one of the more serious episodes on the album. But next week, I think the next 2 weeks can make up clowning for the whole thing. Alright? As always, P.S.A. signing out. Keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. And make your mind up. Don't let it make you.